By the time the state conservation truck pulled into Red Willow County, nobody was laughing anymore. 6 years earlier, they had laughed so hard that people were wiping tears from their eyes. They had laughed at a widow, at a wedding ring, at 600 trees that cost 25 cents each. Now those same farmers stood shoulder to shoulder behind a fence, waiting for that widow to tell them how to save what was left of their land. No one spoke. The only sound came from the wind moving through rows of mature cedar and black locust trees. It was the same Kansas wind. The difference was that now, it had something to slow it down. People had always called it Carter's Rock, not because it was beautiful, because nobody wanted it. The hillside rose above the rest of the Carter farm like a scar, gray limestone, scattered gravel, and just enough soil to fool every generation into trying one more crop. Emily's grandfather planted wheat. Her father tried sorghum. Her husband, Daniel, spent 15 years trying to make the hill profitable. Every one of them failed. The hill wasn't cursed. It simply refused to become something it wasn't. Emily understood that only after Daniel died. The phone rang just after 9 on a freezing November night. Sheriff Collins didn't waste time with small talk. There had been black ice, a bridge, a pickup truck upside down in a flooded ditch. Daniel never came home. The funeral ended. The casseroles stopped coming. The sympathy faded. The bills did not. Emily spread everything across the kitchen table. Mortgage, operating loan, property taxes, feed invoice, veterinary bill. She sharpened a pencil and started adding numbers. Then she checked them again. Nothing changed. She was still short. The kitchen floor creaked. Ben stood in the doorway wearing one of Daniel's old flannel shirts. It hung nearly to his knees. He looked at the papers without saying anything. Children raised on farms learned to read unpaid bills before they learned algebra. "Mom?" Emily quickly turned the papers over. "Couldn't sleep?" He shook his head. After a long silence, he asked the question she had been trying not to ask herself. "Are we going to lose the farm?" Emily opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She wanted to tell him no. Instead, she reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm going to do everything I can." It wasn't the answer either of them wanted, but it was the only honest one she had. Winter settled over western Kansas. Emily sold Daniel's fishing boat, then the newer pickup, then 6 cows, then 6 more. Every sale bought another few weeks. Not another solution. One bitter January morning she climbed Carter's Rock alone. The wind slammed into her hard enough to make her stop walking. Fine sand stung her cheeks. She looked across the open hillside. Every gust lifted another veil of loose soil and carried it east. She watched it disappear into the sky. Her father had once stood on that very spot. She could still hear his voice. He had pointed toward a tiny cedar growing out of solid limestone. "See that tree?" 9-year-old Emily had nodded. "It shouldn't be alive." Frank Miller smiled. "It is alive because it stopped trying to change the hill." He rested one rough hand on her shoulder. "It belongs here." Emily had never understood what he meant. Standing there 25 years later, she finally did. She drove straight into town. Red Willow Farm Supply was crowded, as always. Farmers gathered around the coffee pot arguing about weather forecasts that none of them trusted. Near the register, a faded flyer caught her attention. State Conservation Nursery Surplus Windbreak seedlings 25 cents each. Emily pulled it off the bulletin board. Ray Morgan looked over from behind the counter. "You thinking about planting trees?" She nodded. "How many?" "About 600. Ray actually laughed. Not because he wanted to hurt her, because he thought she was joking. When he realized she wasn't, the smile disappeared. "Emily," he took off his glasses. "Tell me you haven't borrowed more money." "I haven't." "You don't have $150. "I know." She opened her purse. $43. A checkbook with almost nothing behind it, and one small paper envelope. She placed the envelope on the counter. Ray opened it. Inside lay a plain gold wedding band. His face fell. "No, I'm not taking that." Before Emily could answer, another voice cut across the room. "Taking what, Tom Walker?" The richest farmer in the county, 400 acres of prime ground, brand new combines, a confidence so large it filled every room before he did. He stepped beside Emily, glanced at the flyer, then at the ring. For 2 seconds he simply stared. Then he laughed. 600 trees? His voice echoed through the store. On Carter's Rock? The conversation stopped. People turned to watch. Tom pointed toward the flyer. Daniel fought that hill for 15 years. He shook his head. And you're buying firewood. Several men chuckled. Tom wasn't finished. You know what the funny part is? He looked around the room. Those trees are probably worth more than that hill. This time nearly everyone laughed. Emily reached for the envelope. Tom spoke again. Let me guess. He counted on his fingers. Last year you sold half your herd. Last month you sold your pickup. He looked at the wedding ring. Now you're selling this. Then came the sentence that emptied the room. So what's next? He tilted his head toward the window where Ben sat waiting in the truck. The boy? Silence. Even Tom's friends stopped smiling. Ray whispered, Tom, but it was too late. Emily picked up the envelope. For a second, she looked as though she might finally explode. Instead, she walked out without saying a single word. Underscore. She crossed the street to the jeweler. The bell above the door rang softly. 10 minutes later, she came back with an empty envelope and $150 in cash. Ben noticed her bare hand the moment she climbed into the truck. Mom. He looked at the pale circle where the ring had always been. You sold it? Emily nodded once. Ben turned toward the feed store. Through the front window, he could still see Tom laughing with the others. His face tightened. I hate him. Emily started the engine. For several seconds, she couldn't see the road. Her vision blurred. She pulled behind the grain elevator instead of driving home. Only then did she put the truck in park. She rested both hands on the steering wheel, and for the first time since Daniel's funeral, she cried. Not quietly, not gracefully. She cried until she couldn't breathe. Ben climbed across the seat and wrapped both arms around her. Neither of them spoke. When the tears finally stopped, Emily wiped her face, looked at her son, and forced the smallest smile she could manage. We're done selling memories. Ben frowned. What do you mean? She looked at the $150 lying on the dashboard. From now on, we're buying a future. The saplings arrived 19 days later. They came tied in bundles of 50, their roots wrapped in wet paper and packed with damp sawdust. Most were thinner than pencils. Some had no leaves. A few looked dead before they ever touched the ground. Ray Morgan helped Emily and Ben load them into the old pickup. He said very little. He had already heard what Tom said after Emily left the store. Everyone had. Tom happened to be standing near the coffee pot again. He walked outside and looked over the bundles. These are the trees? Emily shut the tailgate. Yes. Tom lifted one cedar between two fingers. This wouldn't stop a chicken from crossing a yard. Emily took it from him and placed it back with the others. It doesn't need to. Not yet? That's right. Tom looked at Ben. You know your mother's betting the farm on sticks. Emily stepped between them. No. She pulled the rope tight across the bundles. I'm betting the farm against the wind. Tom smiled. The wind's going to win. Emily climbed into the truck. Then it shouldn't need you cheering for it. Ray turned away to hide a smile. Tom's face hardened. Emily drove off before he could answer. The real work began the next morning. Her father's old map showed 6 curved rows crossing the western face of the hill. The outer rows would be mostly cedar and Osage orange. Black locust and hackberry would fill the next rows. Mulberry would be mixed through the middle for wildlife and root diversity. The final rows, closest to the pasture, would be spaced wider so equipment could still pass between them. On paper, the plan looked simple. On Carter's Rock, it looked impossible. The first shovel struck limestone 4 inches below the surface. The second hole contained a stone too large to move. The third bent the edge of Daniel's old spade. By noon, they had planted 9 trees. Ben sat on an overturned bucket, breathing hard. How many are left? Emily drank from the canteen. 591. Ben closed his eyes. We're going to die on this hill. Not today. She picked up the digging bar. Today we plant 10 more. They planted 14 the next day, then 17. Emily developed blisters beneath old calluses. The skin split across both palms. Ben's shoulders ached so badly he slept on his back with his arms stretched out beside him. They carried water uphill in 5-gallon cans because no pipe reached the upper rows. Every sapling received only enough to settle the soil around its roots. Not enough to guarantee survival. Only enough to give it a chance. On the 6th day, a truck slowed near the gate. 3 teenage boys sat in the bed. One of them cupped his hands around his mouth. "When does the lumber mill open, Mrs. Carter?" The others laughed. Ben dropped his shovel. Emily caught his arm before he reached the fence. "Let go." "No. They're making fun of Dad. They're making fun of us. Same thing." Emily held him until the truck disappeared down the road. Then she released him. "You want to prove them wrong?" "Yes." "Plant another tree." Ben stared at her. "That's it? That's all? They can say anything they want?" "Yes." "And we just keep working?" Emily picked up the shovel he had dropped. "Laughter is cheap." She pressed the blade into the ground. "Keeping something alive costs more." She handed the shovel back. Ben looked toward the road one more time. Then he started digging. The planting took 28 days. On the final evening, Emily and Ben stood beside tree number 600. It was a crooked black locust with 3 small leaves. Ben held it upright while Emily packed soil around the roots. Neither of them spoke much. They were too tired for ceremony. When the hole was filled, Emily poured out the last water from the bucket. Ben looked across the slope. 6 thin rows curved through the rocks. The saplings were so small they almost disappeared against the ground. "It doesn't look like a windbreak," he said. "No. What does it look like?" Emily studied the hillside. "A promise." "To who?" She looked down toward the pasture and the farmhouse below. "To whoever still lives here after us." The first serious windstorm arrived in June. A brown wall formed on the western horizon before sunset. The weather radio warned of straight-line winds. By 7, dust had swallowed the ridge. The gust front struck the farm with the sound of a freight train. Tin rattled on the machine shed, the windmill groaned, branches broke from the old cottonwood near the creek. Emily and Ben stood on the porch until they could no longer see the hill. For 40 minutes, the farm disappeared inside the storm. As soon as the wind weakened, Emily grabbed a flashlight. The first 2 rows had taken the worst of it. 7 saplings were gone completely. 23 lay sideways. Several had their roots pulled out of the ground. Ben knelt beside a cedar pressed flat against the soil. "Can we save it?" Emily pushed the roots back into the dirt. "We can try." They worked until after midnight. 47 trees were tied upright again. 11 were beyond saving. Emily recorded every number in her father's notebook. Ben watched her write. "Why do you keep track of the dead ones?" "Because failure has something to teach us." "What?" "Where the next trees need stronger stakes." Summer came hot and dry. Rain clouds split around the Carter farm 3 times. By the end of July, 168 saplings were dead. By August, the number reached 212, more than 1/3 of the planting. The hillside looked worse than it had in spring. Dead stems stood between living trees like broken teeth. The jokes returned. Children at school called the hill Widow's Woods. At church, a farmer asked Emily whether she planned to harvest toothpicks. Tom Walker drove by slowly, honking and waving, as if she were part of a parade. Then the bank letter arrived. Prairie State Bank wanted to review the operating note before harvest. Emily read the letter twice. The trees had not saved the farm. Not yet. The cattle still needed feed. The property tax still existed. The bank still wanted money. And almost half of Daniel's wedding ring now stood dead beneath the Kansas sun. That evening, Emily climbed the hill alone. She carried the notebook and a pruning knife. Scratched the bark. Green meant life. Brown meant another loss. Green, green, brown, green, brown. Near the crest, she found another dead locust. Emily pulled it from the ground. The roots were dry and thin. She stared at it. Then something inside her gave way. She threw the tree across the rocks. "What am I doing?" Her voice carried across the empty hill. She kicked the water bucket beside her. It rolled downhill, spilling the last gallon into the dust. "I sold his ring for this." The wind moved through the dead stems. No answer came. Emily dropped to the ground and covered her face. She stayed there until the light had nearly disappeared. Then she heard footsteps. Ben came toward her carrying the bucket. He did not ask whether she had been crying. He sat beside her. After a while he said, "Do you want to stop?" Emily looked across the dead trees. "Yes," Ben nodded. "So do I." She looked at him. He pointed toward 3 surviving black locusts. Behind them lay a narrow ribbon of dark soil. The rest of the hillside was dry as ash. But there, where the wind had slowed, fine earth, seeds, straw, and fragments of grass had gathered. Ben pushed his fingers beneath the surface. It's wet. Emily knelt beside him. 2 inches down, the soil was cool. She lifted a handful. The proof was small enough to fit in her palm, but it existed. Ben looked at her. Maybe the trees aren't failing. Emily stared at the dark soil. Maybe they're beginning. She opened the notebook and wrote, 212 dead, 388 alive. Then beneath it, the soil has started staying. Winter came early. For the first time in years, snow collected behind the young rows, instead of blowing clear over the ridge. The drifts were shallow, but they remained. When March arrived, the snow melted into the soil rather than rushing immediately into the ditch. Small fans of silt formed behind the trunks. 3 inches, 5 inches, 9 inches. Emily measured everything. Snow depth, wind direction, soil moisture, tree survival. Every storm left something behind. Every root opened another path for water. Every season, the hill surrendered a little less. One afternoon, Ray Morgan drove out with 2 cups of coffee and a cardboard box. Emily opened it. Inside were 40 replacement seedlings. I can't pay for these. You already did. She looked at him. How? Ray glanced toward the hill. You paid when everyone laughed and you came back anyway. The second growing season began differently. The surviving black locusts sent out fast new shoots. Hackberries doubled in height. The cedars thickened close to the ground. Birds returned, then rabbits, then quail. When the locust trees flowered, bees covered the branches. Emily borrowed 2 old hives from a retired beekeeper. That summer, she harvested enough honey to fill 38 jars. She sold every one at the Saturday market. The money covered 1 property tax installment. For the first time, something from Carter's Rock had paid a bill. It was not enough to save the farm, but it was enough to prove the hill was no longer useless. Tom heard about the honey. He found Emily outside the feed store loading empty jars. So now you're a beekeeper. I keep bees. How much did that make? Enough, Tom smiled. I planted another 100 acres. I heard. Every acre working. Emily shut the tailgate. No, Tom frowned. You're trying to make every acre work. What's the difference? Some ground works by not being planted. Tom laughed. That's what people say when they can't grow corn. That autumn, Tom bought another 80 acres with a bank loan. The local paper printed a photograph of him shaking hands with Harold Simmons, the bank manager. The caption called it expansion, progress, confidence in the future. Emily clipped the photograph from the paper. Her father had once written in the margin of an old notebook, "Debt feels light during good harvests. You only learn its weight during bad ones." She folded the photograph beside those words. The third spring brought rain. Creeks filled, pastures greened, corn prices climbed. Tom drove past Emily's farm and slowed near the gate. Guess you didn't need those trees after all. Emily looked toward the shelter belt. She did not answer. She had never planted for wet years. By the end of the 3rd summer, the tallest locust stood above Ben's head. The cedars remained shorter but thicker. When wind crossed the ridge, the grass behind the first rows no longer bent flat. It moved gently instead. Ben noticed while checking cattle. They're slowing it. Emily watched the grass. The wind only carries what it has enough strength to lift. So if it slows down, it drops what it stole. Soil, seeds, moisture. Everything the farm had been losing for generations. The 4th year brought a different problem. Prairie State Bank increased interest on the operating loan. Emily sat across from Harold Simmons while he reviewed her books. You're current, he said. Barely. You've reduced the herd. Yes. You have honey income. Some. Bookkeeping work in winter? Yes. Harold removed his glasses. The board wants more security next year. Emily looked at him. Meaning, if income drops, they may ask you to sell the western acreage. The hill. Yes. Emily folded her hands. Tom asked about it, didn't he? Harold's expression changed. I can't discuss another customer. Then don't use another customer to discuss my land. She stood and gathered her papers. At the door, Harold said, Emily. She stopped. I didn't believe in those trees. She turned. He looked toward the dusty street outside. I'm not sure I was right. That winter, Emily worked nights doing bookkeeping at the grain elevator. Ben took weekend jobs repairing fence and cleaning stalls. They replaced more trees. They sold honey. They sold eggs. They sold 2 calves. They stayed current. Barely. The 5th year began with the driest spring in a decade. Tom removed the old hedge line between 2 quarter sections so his larger machinery could make longer passes. The trees had been planted by his father. Tom called them wasted space. The removal gave him 6 more acres of corn. At the feed store, he told anyone willing to listen, "I don't grow firewood, I grow corn." By June, Cotton Creek had narrowed. By July, stock ponds had dropped several feet. Corn leaves curled before noon. The county extension office warned farmers to prepare for a long dry cycle. Tom borrowed more money and planted every acre anyway. "Rain always comes," he said. Emily heard him say it at the coffee counter. She carried 2 rolls of irrigation tubing to the register. Tom looked over. "What are you watering now?" "The replacement trees." "You're still replacing them?" "Yes. If we don't get rain soon, everybody's going to lose something." Emily paid Ray. "That's why I'm replacing them." Tom watched her leave. This time he did not laugh. The 6th summer arrived behind a wall of heat. Temperatures crossed 100 degrees for 9 straight days. 38 days passed without measurable rain. Cattle crowded every patch of shade. Pastures faded from green to yellow, then from yellow to the color of old bones. Tom's 400 acres lay exposed beneath an open sky. Without the hedge line, the wind crossed nearly a mile of open ground. His corn leaves rolled tight. The ears stayed small. The soil between the rows turned to powder. Tom checked the fields every morning. He stopped talking about yields. Emily's farm suffered too. The trees did not create rain. They could not fill Cotton Creek. They could not make the drought disappear. The hayfield yellowed. The cattle grazed lower. Emily sold 4 more cows before the livestock market collapsed beneath the flood of drought sales. Ben watched the trailer leave. "That leaves 12. "I know. If we keep selling them, what are we protecting the pasture for?" Emily closed the gate. "For the cattle we don't have to sell." But that night, after Ben went to bed, she sat alone at the kitchen table. The bank letter lay open in front of her. Prairie State wanted additional collateral. The stock pond was dropping. The honey money was gone. The hay crop had nearly failed. Emily placed Daniel's photograph beside the letter. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she whispered. For the first time, she considered calling Tom. Not to ask for help, to ask what he would pay for the hill. Her hand reached toward the telephone. Then the wind struck the kitchen window. Dust hissed across the glass. Emily looked outside. The yard light illuminated the eastern side of the shelter belt. The open pasture beyond lay nearly flat. But the grass beneath the trees still stood, not tall, not lush, alive. Emily slowly withdrew her hand. The next morning, Earl Jenkins called before sunrise. His well had failed. "We can haul drinking water from town," he said. "But the cattle pond is almost gone." "How many head?" 37. Emily looked through the kitchen window at her own shrinking pond. 37 cattle could drain it in days. "Bring 10. There was a pause. "I can pay you." "No. I won't take charity." "Then help Ben repair fence this weekend." Earl brought 10 cows that afternoon. Tom arrived before supper. "You're taking other people's cattle?" 10. "You don't have the grass." "I have enough shade." Tom stared toward the shelter belt. The herd stood behind the eastern rows, where the wind moved more gently, and the ground remained cooler. "You'll ruin your own pasture." "Maybe." "For Jenkins?" "For his cattle." Tom shook his head. "You're going to lose this farm trying to save everybody else." Emily looked at him. "You drove all the way here to warn me? This is bad business." "Then don't copy it." Tom glanced toward the trees. His own cattle had no shade except along the creek. The creek was nearly dry. He left without another word. The storm came on August 23rd. The morning began hot and still. No birds, no clouds, not even grasshoppers moved. By 10, the temperature was already 98 degrees. Emily noticed the western horizon just before lunch. A dark brown wall stretched from north to south. Ben came out of the machine shed. "What is that?" Emily had seen old photographs from the 1930s. Black dust crossing the plains. Wet towels stuffed beneath doors. Soil settling into beds and dishes. This storm was smaller, but it was coming quickly. "Move the cattle east of the trees." "Now?" "Now." They opened the gate. The first gust struck before they had moved half the herd. Dust cut into their faces. The cattle turned instinctively toward the shelter belt. By 12:30, the sky had darkened. The first row disappeared inside the brown cloud. Then the second. Emily heard branches crack. Ben shouted, but the wind swallowed his words. They reached the barn as visibility dropped below 20 feet. The storm hit with a continuous roar. Tin lifted on the machine shed. Gravel struck the windows. The farmhouse groaned beneath the pressure. Behind the 6 rows, the cattle crowded together but did not panic. Across the county, Tom Walker was trapped in the middle of his north field. He had driven out to inspect the corn when the horizon changed. By the time he turned back, the road had vanished. He stopped the truck rather than risk the ditch. The wind rocked it. Soil hammered the windshield like dry rain. Through the brown haze, Tom watched his field move. Not the corn, the ground. Topsoil lifted in broad sheets and raced east. Furrows disappeared. Corn roots showed. The 6 acres he had gained by removing his father's hedge became an open runway for the storm. Tom sat behind the wheel with both hands locked around it. He watched thousands of dollars leave in one afternoon. Not grain, not machinery, something harder to replace. Soil. Through the dust, he could barely make out Carter's rock. The trees bent nearly flat. Branches snapped. Leaves tore away. But the rows held. Behind them, the pasture remained rooted. Tom lowered his head against the steering wheel. He remembered the feed store, the ring, the laughter, the cruel question about Ben. He remembered telling the county he would buy Emily's hill for next to nothing. The land had finally answered him. The storm weakened shortly before 4. Emily stepped outside. Branches covered the ground. 2 locusts had split. 1 cedar lay torn out by its roots. Several trunks leaned badly, but the shelter belt remained. Beyond the eastern rows, the cattle were alive. The barn roof had held. The grass was flattened but rooted. At the western edge, Emily stopped. A ridge of dark soil had gathered against the first 2 rows. In places, it nearly reached her knees. Seeds, straw, leaves, and dust had packed beneath the branches. The shelter belt had caught the storm. Not all of it. Enough. Ben stared. Is that our soil? Some. Where did the rest come from? Emily looked west. Across the fence, Tom's field lay pale and scarred. The surface had been stripped away in long streaks. From everybody who thought the wind would leave them alone. By sunset, pickup trucks lined both sides of the county road. Farmers came to see the damage. At first, they stopped at Tom's field. Then they crossed toward Carter's Rock. The state conservation specialist arrived the following morning. He examined the rows, measured the spacing, dug beneath the leaf litter. He never called it a miracle. Instead, he asked to see Emily's records. She brought out her father's notebooks and her own. 6 years of wind direction, tree survival, snow capture, soil depth, moisture. The specialist read in silence. This is careful work, he finally said. Emily almost laughed. Most of it was bad work. He looked up. What do you mean? Dead trees. Wrong stakes, not enough water, broken tools. That is careful work. She frowned. Good land management isn't never making mistakes. He handed the notebook back. It's learning fast enough that the next mistake costs less. The farmers around him listened. Tom stood at the far edge of the crowd. He did not come forward. He did not apologize. Not that day. At the county drought meeting 2 weeks later, Harold Simmons asked Emily to speak. The VFW hall filled before 7. Farmers were frightened. Loans were due. Feed prices had doubled. Land values had started slipping. Emily placed 2 notebooks on the lectern, her father's and hers. Then she unfolded the yellow receipt. 600 trees, she said. 25 cents each. The room was silent. 212 died the first summer. We replaced some, lost more, carried water uphill, broke shovels, sold cattle, worked winters, waited. She placed the receipt beside the notebooks. The trees were cheap. The time wasn't. The conservation specialist asked, "What saved your pasture?" Nothing saved it by itself. Emily looked across the room. The trees slowed the wind. The roots opened the soil. The rows trapped snow. The leaves covered bare ground. The shade reduced heat. The standing grass protected what remained. She paused. It worked because 100 small things kept doing their jobs when nobody was watching. An old farmer near the wall lowered his head. Emily continued. Keep asking one crop, one machine, one loan, or one good year to save us. That isn't how land survives. It survives because something protects it before the crisis comes. Tom sat in the back row. He never stood. He never apologized. When the meeting ended, he left before Emily reached the door. 3 days later, Tom returned to Carter's Rock alone. Emily found him near the first row, kneeling beside the trapped soil. He held some between his fingers. "I thought I knew what good ground looked like." Emily said nothing. Tom stood. "I lost more than an inch in places." She nodded. "1 inch doesn't sound like much." "It does if it took 100 years to make." Tom looked toward his field. "The bank wants me to sell equipment." Emily waited. "I came to ask what I should do." It was not an apology, but it was the first honest thing Tom had ever brought through her gate. "Leave the stubble standing." Tom took out a notebook. "Put temporary snow fence across the worst stretch." He wrote it down. "Plant mixed rows next spring. Cedars outside? Some, but not a solid wall." Why? If the wind can't pass through, pressure can break the trees or roll over them. Tom nodded. "What else?" "Take the 6 new acres out of corn." His pencil stopped. "I paid for that ground. And now you're paying again." Tom looked toward the stripped field. For years, every conversation between them had been a contest. Now the land had already chosen the winner. He wrote down the instruction. The drought continued into winter. Tom sold 1 tractor, then a grain truck. He stopped drinking coffee at the feed store. When he did come inside, people spoke more quietly around him. Emily did not enjoy it. She knew what it felt like to have a room turn your worst season into entertainment. The following spring, the state nursery sold out of Windbreak stock. 6 neighboring farms marked new shelter belts. Ray kept a waiting list behind the counter. Farmers who once argued about horsepower now argued about spacing, species, and snow capture. Tom installed temporary fencing. He stopped planting the 6 exposed acres, but for months, he did not return to Emily's farm. Then one afternoon, his pickup rolled through her gate. Tom carried a small cardboard box. He removed his cap before walking to the porch. Emily opened the screen door. "What is it?" "The jewelry store closed last month." He held out the box. "They auctioned what was left." Emily opened it. Inside lay her wedding ring. The gold band was worn thin along one side. The small scratch Daniel had made while repairing the baler was still there. Emily stopped breathing for a moment. "You bought it." Tom nodded. "I thought it should come home." "I can't pay you. I'm not selling it." She looked up. Tom stared at the porch boards. "I laughed at you." Emily said nothing. "I said things about Ben." His voice weakened. He could not finish the sentence. "I wanted the hill." "I know. I thought if the bank took it, I'd get it cheap." "I know." Tom swallowed. "I was wrong." Emily waited. He looked toward the shelter belt. "I wasn't wrong only about the trees." For the first time, he met her eyes. "I was wrong about you." Emily closed the box. "What do you want?" Tom looked toward his land. "I want to know how to keep my son from inheriting a field that won't stay put." That was the first question Emily trusted. She went inside and returned with her father's map. Tom unfolded it carefully. "Start with those 6 acres. I already took them out." "Good. What next?" "Plant where the wind enters first." "Mixed rows?" "Yes." "Cedars outside?" "Some." "And one more thing," Emily said. "What?" "Don't laugh at anyone else for planting what you don't yet understand." Tom looked down. "The trees never heard me." Emily slipped the ring onto her finger. "No." She looked toward his stripped field. "But the land did." The following Saturday, Tom organized a planting day. He did not call it a celebration. He called it work. 40 farmers arrived carrying shovels, buckets, stakes, and children. They gathered on the same 6 acres the storm had nearly carried away. Tom stood in front of them with a shovel in his hands. His voice shook. "I used to think farming meant forcing every acre to produce." He glanced toward Emily. She stood beside Ben near the first row. Tom looked back at the crowd. "Turns out, sometimes the best thing 1 acre can produce is protection for all the others." Then he drove the shovel into the ground. Families who had once laughed beside the coffee pot now knelt together in the dirt. Children carried water. Older farmers measured spacing. Ray handed out seedlings. No reporters came. No cameras recorded it. Emily was glad. Real change rarely looked impressive while it was happening. It looked like dirty hands, bent backs, and small trees that might still die before summer. Late that afternoon, an 8-year-old girl found Emily kneeling beside the first cedar. "Mrs. Carter?" Emily looked up. "Why didn't you yell at Mr. Walker?" Emily packed soil gently around the roots. She thought for a moment. Then she looked toward Carter's Rock, where hundreds of trees now stood above a man's head. Their roots had pushed into stone. The soil had stayed. "Because yelling would only prove I could be loud, too." The girl frowned. "Weren't you angry?" "Yes." "What did you do with it?" Emily pressed the final handful of soil around the cedar. "I planted it." That evening, the wind crossed Red Willow County again. It touched the new rows first. The saplings bent toward the east. They would always bend. That was not weakness. It was how they survived. 600 seedlings, 25 cents each. 212 lost in the first summer. 6 years of work nobody saw. 1 ring sold. 1 farm saved. And 1 entire county forced to learn that mockery lasts only as long as the wind carries it. Roots last longer. Have you ever been laughed at for doing something differently? Maybe you chose the slower path. Maybe you kept working on something that took years before anyone could see its value. Or maybe you held on to an idea long after everyone else told you to let it go. Tell us your story in the comments. Someone reading it may need the same reminder Emily gave Red Willow County, that just because progress is hard to see doesn't mean nothing is growing. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe for more stories about quiet courage, hard-earned wisdom, and the lessons rural life leaves behind. We'll be right here, watching the weather, listening to the wind, and telling the stories the land still remembers.